Okay guys, let's get into the next topic. What I want to talk about right now is the state of VR in 2022. Are we virtually there, and is it still growing? So what I'll do now is I'll give you some numbers. And really this is based on forecast numbers from 2021. Yeah? And it's really around gaming revenue. So 2021 VR gaming market size was 1.4 billion US dollars. And it's more if we consider revenue outside of gaming as well. Yeah. The 2021 VR market size was actually overall 4.8 billion US dollars. The 2021 VR headset unit sales was 6 million. And really what we're seeing forecasted is, let's say from 2019, we're 0.8 billion USD going up to 2.4 billion USD in 2024. In my view, those don't sound like huge numbers. So you might say to yourself, is the metaverse going to drive up some of these numbers, the number of headsets basically kind of sold? Now we know that Sony are going to release PS VR2 in 2022, end of, or early 2023. Xbox has not announced any VR product to date. However, Microsoft did purchase Space VR in 2017, which sits alongside their HoloLens division. And if you look at the numbers in Q4 2020, based on data from Statista, we're talking about unit sales here. 1 million Oculus Quest 2 sold, 120,000 PSVR units, 60,000 Valve Index units, and 50,000 Oculus Rifts. Not massive, really, you might say. Yeah, not at all.
But I guess timing of the PSVR there, that timing of that sales may not have been at its peak, I don't think. Was 2020 its peak?
Possibly not at its peak, but you might actually say that Oculus Quest being a cheaper unit, low barrier to entry, is the one that's doing quite well.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's only 1 quarter as well.
Yeah, it's only one quarter.
That's not the accumulation of headsets.
Yeah, correct.
I don't know how it's going to happen, but it needs like an iPhone boxed with a headset adapter you plug into the phone for it just to get I'm making it up, but you know what I mean. It needs to come in the box for it to drive the next level of W.
Yeah, it's the barrier to entry, and money talks.
And I guess those forecasts that you've got there, especially for the forward years, don't take into consideration what's happening now in the world, right? With inflation, the war on Russia, Ukraine, that sort of stuff. So
yeah, possibly not.
I suspect those numbers are way too high. I think, especially for 22. I think the cost of living impact is going to drive a lot of people away from it. And I guess also PSVR2 just isn't ready.
Yeah, and VR is considered more of a luxury item when it's all said and done, even for people who are kind of hardcore gamers.
Yeah.
But what I thought I'd do next is basically just do a side-by-side comparison of some of the, let's say, more well-known headsets, VR headsets, right? So we've got PSVR2 has not yet come out, PSVR, Oculus Quest 2, Valve Index, HTC Vive Pro 2, and HTC Cosmos. And all I was trying to show, and obviously people who are listening to us won't see the diagram, but I'm going to post this on the kind of like blog site, right? Because God knows it took me a long time to pull it together. Because it's going somewhere, I can tell you that.
This is like you're going for a job interview.
Yeah, it really is, right?
Present.
But if you look at the specs of PSVR, and guys, I'll show you the prices for some of the other headsets in a minute, yeah? Right? It is extremely competitive. And what I'll call out is, there are certain things I'll call out right now. Inside-out tracking. There's only 2 other headsets who have this kind of feature. One of them, Oculus Quest 2, being absolutely something where the compute unit is part of the headset anyway. Eye tracking, I think it's the only thing on the market that I think has that. It's the only thing that's going to have HDR unless something obviously new comes out. Resolution is actually comparable with, and basically I feel better than everything but the HTC Vive Pro 2, which is a really high-end, headset. And everything else that it has is fairly feature complete, apart from having no headphones. Yeah? Apart from having no headphones. So to me, that's impressive. So
You haven't seen the price yet.
yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So let's get to the prices. So before we get to the prices, what I did also is that I kind of drew up a comparison on the controllers, and obviously we don't know a lot about the PSVR2 controllers, but we know obviously everything's wireless these days in terms of controller. It clearly has an analog stick, which the PSVR didn't really have or didn't really use. Okay. It has finger tracking, but I don't think it's not a full implementation. Okay, whereas something like the Valve Index, it's probably furthest ahead. It's meant to have 87 sensors on the controller to manage that. Yeah, Oculus Quest has kind of like straightforward hand kind of tracking. Obviously, PSVR2's controls haptics, adaptive triggers, battery life. I'm not really sure on, but you could believe it's probably comparable in that it'll kind of deliver you 10 hours. And it's a variation of the other controllers between as low as 2 hours to 10 hours.
Well, can't it power itself over the USB Type C?
Yeah, I think that's what the USB will do for it, but the controllers probably will need recharging.
Oh, controllers,
Yeah.
sorry, yep.
Now, we get to the pricing side of things. And looking at it, PSVR2, obviously, we don't know. But based on history, you can imagine that coming in at £500. Yeah? Similar to what a PS5 costs. I can imagine that. When PSVR came out, it was £349 just for the headset. Current day, it's £299 for the headset, plus camera, plus games. I think they bundle about 5 or 6 games with it.
Even now?
Yeah, even now. But back in the day, it was £349 for the headset, but you need really the camera, which I think was about £40 to £50.
You don't need the camera anymore, do you?
No camera, and you'd need the Move controllers if you wanted some of that, and those are about, I don't know, anything up to £100, as well as having a console to plug it into. So, arguably not cheap. Now, Oculus Quest, there are 2 SKUs. $299 with 128 gigabytes of storage, $399 with 256. They come with controllers. Valve Index, fairly high end. It's the full set is £919. I've seen on the Valve store itself, and that comes with the controllers, the headset, and these base stations, which basically allow you to have that full room VR. So it's motion detectors that allow you to have that full room VR. Outside of that, $689 with the headset and controllers, or $459 just with the headset itself. HTC Vive Pro 2, it's the most expensive one out of the lot. £1,299 for the full thing, and that's headset, controllers, and the base station, which monitor your movement. And £719 just for the headset. HTC Cosmos, £899 for the full set. Plus they've got their own base stations for the movement. $499 with the headset. Is that right? I believe it is. I think there's controllers there. I think headset and controllers, and $449 with just the headset. So really, VR ain't cheap. Yeah.
Well, and the fact that the PC ones, well, with the exception of the Oculus Quest 2, you need a very capable VR machine. And my
Correct.
God, during that time when the graphics cards were expensive, and
Forget about
it's
it.
slowly coming down now, but you wouldn't be able to get something for you probably need what, $1,500 maybe,
Yeah.
to get something that's capable.
And just a note on this, the HTC Cosmos is heavily discounted. You know, I think they discounted each SKU by almost £200. You know, as of April. And there are other headsets as well, like HP's Reverb 2, and there are actually different standards in game stores for VR content. So you might say it's at the moment it's a very kind of variable landscape we're looking at, and it's bloody expensive. Yeah, you know you can see the low end in terms of just price, not performance. Oculus Quest 2, you can see why that's sold the way it has. The high end is everything on, on the PC side, from the Valve Index, HTC's Vive, and HTC Cosmos, and then it seems like PSVR2 is gonna occupy the middle ground, from what I can see. So, what price is the future? Well, I guess we got to know, how much the PSVR2 is gonna cost. No one knows. Yeah, PSVR2 is not likely to be PSVR compatible. But why? And I think last podcast we talked about this. Yeah, and I tried to kind of articulate it a bit better because, like, obviously, we thought long and hard about it. We couldn't come out with kind of a credible reason, right? But this is what I thought. We know that the headset, the Move controllers need calibration. But I was thinking, is this part of the system firmware, or is it something in-game that needs to be patched for every game? And then, second point, how will I/O from the headset camera controllers and the breakout box be emulated? And the other thing I put down here is, like, with that hardware being as limited as it was, the games are definitely designed around some of those limitations, like, there's latency in terms of the tracking, for instance.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I think
can
when
create problems.
when we covered it, I still think it's possible, but it ultimately depends on the game engine and the coordinates and other things that they've developed into it. If the game engine needs to work out other things that the PSVR headset was providing, then it's going to be difficult. If it was literally purely based on a game environment with 3D coordinates, then you should, in theory, be able to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm too far removed to know what they're doing there.
Yeah. I just think because it's such a Frankenstein solution, right? I don't think it's going to be necessarily as straightforward as we'd like, Now, to the point on, and I think this is the most interesting point for me, right, was that looking at those numbers and the comparisons, I said, PSVR2 for PC, why not? To me, right, there's a definite gap in the market for this. Sony have probably invested a ton of money in developing what, as far as I can see anyway, a very, very high-end, well, as high-end for now, competitive headset. Yeah?
It has to be for PC.
It has to be,
well.
right? You would have thought.
Yeah, and I think with the USB-C, it makes it much more accessible. You would hope that they've made it work.
Yeah.
And they'll sell far more units, and they'll bring the price down. It's part of their PC's massive part of their strategy going forward, isn't it? So it has to be. There's no way.
I mean, you could actually hack the PSVR original one to work on a PC. It was quite difficult, but you could do it.
Yeah, definitely.
People will lap it up, don't they? Because people like to own a PC and a PlayStation because PlayStation's got the games you can't get in the PC. So it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just
But I mean, there does look to be a bit of a gap in the market here. Those are the very capable high-end PC VR headsets. You think about it, it's they're high-end, but on paper they look very comparable. And if Sony can offer a headset plus controllers that are about £500, then that's the middle tier of the market, basically one, if you know what I mean.
it's the gateway drug over to the PlayStation console.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably. I've still held off getting a VR headset for the PC, probably waiting on what Sony's doing with it. So yeah, if it does work, I think I would.
And it makes even more sense as the PlayStation's on x86 and kind of Radeon graphics now.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to a point that me and Joe are going to have a whip round. I'm just going to buy you a
Well,
PS5.
well, I was going to say,
Has to be said, waving and going. Like.
I had an opportunity to buy a bundle because there's a few bundles that were being available on Game and Currys, I think. So I've had the window of opportunity. I could see it. I could add it to my basket. I could check it out and everything, but I just didn't execute.
Yeah, we're still going to have a whip around.
Yeah.
No matter what you're saying, I think it's necessary now. It's got to the point where we need intervention here.
Citizens arrest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's round it off, guys. Let's round it off. Those are my thoughts on this, but I was also thinking, what about Nintendo and Xbox? So I kind of thought back to the history, especially with Nintendo, when guys, if you remember the VR Boy, or whatever it was called, that weird apparatus that kind of works kind of like a little bit of like a Tomitronic. You steer through the. And I kind of wondered, given who Nintendo are, and given what they do, why wouldn't they basically produce some sort of Oculus Quest competitor?
I don't know. It feels like they're too far behind, or at least, I mean, maybe they are working on it, but it just feels like it's too much of a leap.
Yeah, and for Xbox, we've not really heard about what they're gonna do with AR VR, if anything. They certainly bought a company who specializes in VR, so they've got something.
I would assume that they would have to push it. And
I think they're not going to touch it.
Really?
Because I think they've got enough on their plate
with Game Pass,
with all the game studios getting Game Pass going. I personally think they will allow it on the business side, push that front, and then they'll reuse stuff if it moves forward on that side, and they'll wait and see whether Sony is successful in their second iteration. Otherwise, I think they've got too much on their plate. I'm not saying that they probably have a skunk work team doing something, but I just think they've been burnt so many times. They need to get themselves back on track this generation.
Or they just
adding VR to the mix.
Or they just give it up and work on the actual the metaverse portion of it, the virtual world portion of it. Right? You'd expect them to do something, especially Microsoft and their Office Teams kind of stuff, right? You'd hope that they would do that, and it would have synergies with the sort of gaming kind of side of things, and you would hope that it would bridge those two things together.
Well, maybe it's more of a kind of Microsoft, corporation thing rather than an Xbox thing. Right now, I mean that seems to be, sensible. With the amount of investment that Game Pass needs, it's probably like you can't fight, wars on two fronts sort of scenario, which would make sense to me. But the last thought I had about the whole VR thing was, especially with Epic and them really investing $1 billion in that, $1 billion, yeah. Could we see kind of Sony partnering with Epic for the PC ecosystem? And there's a couple of things here. I think we know Epic as well want to be part of this whole metaverse, gold rush. And arguably, they've got something like Fortnite that would translate quite well. They've also got Unreal Engine 5, and I kind of wonder how, well that supports kind of VR developments. But if Epic want to get into, let's say, the metaverse space, at some point, they might need a VR headset. Yeah, they're not a hardware company; they're a software company. So that, to me, seems to be potentially something that could work.
I think their game would be, as you kind of put there, the Unreal Engine 5. I think it would be crazy if they didn't have some extension or something that allows it to be compatible in some way, even with just the 3D world generation portion of it, right? You'd expect them to be able to reuse that. As for the VR headsets, they're just, I think, again, because they're not a hardware company, I just can't see them doing that. They'd probably partner with someone, maybe.
Yeah, Sony.
And just, literally just hook it into whether it's PlayStation itself or PC, where they're more traditionally kind of based on Unreal 5.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems a little bit more obvious. I mean, like, given, Sony just ploughed $1 billion into that company. They've got a VR headset that's coming out, which you could arguably say should work with a PC without too much problems. You know, it just seems to be like a synergy, if you want to call it that could totally work. Guys, that's pretty much my thoughts on VR at the moment. I just think there's more to this kind of like VR space than meets the eye, especially with PlayStation. Really, I would not see any reason why they wouldn't basically jump onto the PC space. Because looking at this, there's a clear gap here. You know, you got the low end's been taken care of via Oculus Quest. You're not really gonna compete with that. The barrier to entry in terms of cost is way too low. The high end's the high end. Yeah. And looking at the numbers of unit sales, you can see that really it's a luxury item. But the middle tier and the possibility of really becoming a standard in that space, that I've got to say that's got to be too enticing.
Yeah.
For surely even Sony to ignore. You know what I mean?
Because then they wouldn't even be tied to the number of PS5 sales. And,
exactly.
That PC market would be quite huge.
Yeah. You wouldn't. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't have a dependency on how many PlayStations you've sold. It wouldn't be a problem. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I just if they don't do this, I don't know. I mean, I've got to say,
there's hope out there. I think.
Yeah. You don't do it. I don't know. We are in the land of the mad. You know what I mean? Definitely.
What would be the downside if they did do that? Open up to the...
Well, if you're a fanboy, the whole world is collapsing in on you. I mean,
these companies don't. Fanboys don't.
I would say the downside is the testing, because PC format is just so wide. The support that they would need to make that work is going to be very different, right, from just testing it and proving that it works on the PS5. So they're going to have to open it up very.
Embarked on that journey with the games they're porting. I just think they've already set sail on that. I honestly think there isn't much of a downside in terms of what it's the risk reward thing as well, isn't it? I just think that if you're going to invest this much into a headset that looks arguably extremely impressive compared to the high and low end, I don't know why you wouldn't. I just don't know. Unless the implementation of this headset is so shabby and it's being, it's cut so many corners that really it doesn't matter. But I don't get the sense that's happened, and there's a clear gap here.
Yeah. Definitely an opportunity.
Yeah, Jay, to answer your question, doesn't look like there's any kind of downside, unless you're a fanboy, right, who just wants PlayStation to remain an island. I think there's no reason. Yeah. I mean, the metaverse, Sony, they need numbers. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think with that said, it's time to move on to the next topic.